Daytona 500 qualifying is complete, and shocker, Hendrick Motorsports was on the top. They have dominated Daytona 500 qualifying for quite a number of years, and the only car to beat them since 2015 for the pole in the Daytona 500 was a Hendrick-powered car at JTG with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Other than that, they've been on the front row. They've swept the front row. In fact, in 2019, they started 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, for the Daytona 500, the single car qualifying, they did 1, 2, 3, and 5. Of course, the lineups will be determined tomorrow night in the dual races, but I mean, it's insane what they do in Daytona 500 qualifying. Now, the race is a completely different story. They haven't won a 500 since 2014, but the qualifying has been insane. They first started this streak, or this hot streak, I guess, of front row starts in 2015. Jeff Gordon in his final Daytona 500. He started from the pole with Jimmy Johnson alongside him on the front row. Then in 2016, it was Chase Elliott getting the pole. Then in 2017, it was Chase Elliott again getting the pole. Then 2018, Alex Bowman. 2019, William Byron. 2020 was Stenhouse. That was the only non-Hendrick car, but it was still a car powered by Hendrick Motors. Last year, it was Bowman again, I believe. And then this year, his first pole at Daytona, or at least the Daytona 500, Kyle Larson, the defending series champ, is starting off his 2022 season right where last season ended. Of course, Larson last year won 10 races, won the championship, but I will say I'm a little surprised that, not because of the car he's driving. Obviously, Hendrick Motorsports has been so good at the super speedways, but in terms of super speedways, that has not been exactly Larson's strength, I guess I should say. But, Bowman, this is his 5th consecutive year of qualifying on the front row in the Daytona 500. I believe that's a record. He's a great qualifier at Daytona, especially the Daytona 500. But Larson, out of the 4, I didn't think he was going to be, I knew he was going to be contending for the pole considering he was with Hendrick, but it is a little surprising considering how much success his teammates have had in Daytona 500 qualifying. Bowman with 2 poles and now 5 consecutive front row starts, and then also Chase Elliott with a couple of poles in the Daytona 500 and William Byron with a pole in the Daytona 500. So Larson, he ends up getting the pole for the Daytona 500. Great way to start off the season for him. Great start for Hendrick Motorsports, but obviously there are some other things to talk about with the Daytona 500 qualifying. Obviously, the duels are tomorrow, which will determine the lineup, but also determine some spots in the Daytona 500. But there were 6 open cars entering this race weekend, whatever we want to call it, and 2 of them have already locked in their spots regardless of what they do in the duels. And those 2 drivers are 1997 Formula One World Champion Jacques Villeneuve and Noah Gragson, the Xfinity driver. He has quite a few wins in the Xfinity Series. Made it to the Final 4 last year. In fact, he will be making his Cup Series debut. Fun fact about him, he was not even born when Jacques Villeneuve, the other guy who qualified for the 500, was winning his Formula One championship. Thought that was an interesting little fact that someone said on the social medias. But it's a big deal for both of those teams. Of course, I think it's Beard Motorsports. Brendan Gaughan used to race for them for a number of years, and Brendan Gaughan was a good super speedway racer. Beard put together some pretty good cars powered by ECR. They had some type of alliance with RCR, I want to say, but they usually did pretty good with Brendan Gaughan. He got some top 10s in the Daytona 500 at Talladega. He was leading with like 5 to go before he did a full flip and landed it. But, they've shown some speed before. They've shown that they can qualify in the Daytona 500. Last year, they missed it just by a bit, missed it in the dual race. But this year, they are locked into the show. And then the other one, a brand new team, a part-time team. I mean, Beard is also a part-time team, but a brand new team, completely different than anything we've really seen in NASCAR in terms of the setup. We got a couple guys, like a Dutch investor, and then I think they said on TV tonight, former Le Mans winner that has invested into Team Hesselberg, driven in the Daytona 500 by 1997 Formula One world champion. And then also he won the Indy 500 in 95 or 96. I can't remember which year he won the Indy 500, but a very highly accomplished race car driver outside of NASCAR. He is yet to qualify for the Daytona 500 prior to today, but today he locks himself in for his first Daytona 500 start. In terms of speed, Gragson was the 33rd quickest. Villeneuve was the 36th quickest. The other open cars that are going to have to fight for their spots tomorrow in the 500 are going to be Kaz Grala for the Money Team Racing, Floyd Mayweather's team. Greg Biffle for NY Racing, his return to NASCAR. Timmy Hill and J.J. Yaley, they will be fighting for those final two spots in the Daytona 500. Now, here's how it works. We had this controversy last year where the guy who qualified on speed ended up being the highest finisher in the duel. And, you know, that's last year. Let's just explain this without complicating it. If Villeneuve or Gragson finish highest in their duel, so, you know, they take the spot from the duel, because the only way to qualify for the Daytona 500 is by finishing highest in your duel or getting top speed in single car qualifying, or the top two speeds in this instance. And let's say Villeneuve or Gragson gets one of those spots. They finish the highest in their duel out of the open cars. Then that means the next spot would go to the next fastest guy in terms of the single qualifying speed. So let's say Villeneuve finishes highest in his duel out of the open guys, and Gragson doesn't. So that would mean that Kaz Grala would then be the next fastest guy, and he would get in on speed if, let's say, Timmy Hill were to qualify off of finishing the highest in his duel. But if both Villeneuve and Gragson finish highest in their duels, that would mean that it would be Grala and Biffle both making the Daytona 500 based off of their qualifying speeds. But honestly, I don't think we're going to have to worry about that. These are two part-time teams. They're already going to be starting at the back, unless, you know, this is for position, so, you know, they might push, but I don't really see them taking a big risk in any big moves, staying in the middle of the pack or anything, maybe damaging the car, wrecking the car, having to get it back up, or having to scramble to get it back up from North Carolina. So I don't see, especially with the next-gen cars being in limited supplies and, you know, not exactly 100% ready in terms of backups and all that stuff for the long term as of now, I don't really see them putting their cars at risk. I don't think, though, they have to start the race regardless if they want their spot in the Daytona 500, but, you know, I wouldn't see them taking any unnecessary risks, per se, for finishing top in the duel. They're already in the 500. It doesn't matter how they do in the duel, so I do not expect them to do anything too crazy. But, yeah, if they do attempt to race hard in the duels, if they finish highest, next two spots will be based off qualifying speed, which right now can go to Grala and Biffle. Yaley and Hill cannot get in on their qualifying times. They have to finish highest in their duels. So, go Timmy Hill, right? Everyone loves Timmy Hill. But, yeah, those are some of the big stories from qualifying. Obviously, Hendrick Motorsports 1, 2, 3, 5 with Larson on pole, his first Daytona 500 pole. Bowman qualifying second, his fifth consecutive front row start in the Daytona 500. I mean, that's insane. 5 straight. But, I mean, that's seriously crazy. Byron qualifying third, and then the one guy who broke up the Hendrick party in round 1 of qualifying, it was a 1, 2, 3, 4 for Hendrick, Eric Almirola. In his final Daytona 500 start, Eric Almirola will be starting, or he qualified 4th in the single car. We'll determine the lineups tomorrow. Once again, I'm going to say that, but what a story that would be if he could go out and win his final Daytona 500. But, yeah, those are basically the main storylines. I don't really want to go through the whole lineup. It's just going to switch tomorrow anyways, but those are the big storylines. Kyle Larson is on pole for the Daytona 500. Hendrick Motorsports, once again, dominant in the qualifying. Trackhouse looked really good in the qualifying. You know, some of the Gibbs guys, Truex, Hamlin looked good. But yeah, then obviously the open spots is something that people have been looking at, especially with the big names that are involved there in terms of, you know, every aspect. In terms of driver, you have Jacques Villeneuve in the Team Hezerberg car, and he is into the Daytona 500. You got Noah Gragson, an Xfinity guy. He is in the Daytona 500. And then also, you know, you have some big names as team owners. You got Floyd Mayweather funding the Money Team, and now they're going to try to race into the Daytona 500. You got Greg Biffle coming back. He's going to try to race his way back into the Daytona 500. And then you got J.J. Yeley, Timmy Hill also trying to fight into the Daytona 500 for MBM Motorsports. But, yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about tonight. It's pretty late. Not too late. It's 9 o'clock, but... yeah, just want to talk about qualifying. We'll see how the race goes on Sunday. Obviously, the duels tomorrow, we'll see how those go as well. Still trying to figure out what I'm going to do for that. But have a great rest of your night. I hope you enjoyed qualifying. See you for the duels tomorrow.